everybody, it's time for another Coffee Break Card Show. Recently we talked about the tobacco wars and American tobacco and imperial tobacco. Well, today I want to start with a brief look at a company called American Leaf Tobacco, not to be confused at all with ATC, the American Tobacco Company. American Leaf Tobacco imported leaf tobacco from mainly Turkey, and after the First World War they did start to struggle with acquiring the raw material, and this company had been in business since the mid-1890s, I believe, and it was formed by a guy called Morris Shorin. Morris had 4 sons, and these 4 sons decided that in the 30s that they wanted to change the direction of the company, and they wanted to get involved in a new product on the market, which was chewing gum. So the 4 brothers wanted to be the best at what they did, so the name they chose was Tops, and they added an extra P to the name. Rather than just calling it TOPS, they added an extra P, making it Tops with the double P, and that's purely for distinction and to make themselves different. So 1939, off we go, and Tops are producing chewing gum. After the Second World War, 4 guys in the UK all got together, and they decided they were more or less going to do exactly the same. They wanted to produce chewing gum in the UK, and these 4 guys were Simon Anks, Ruddy Braun, and 2 brothers called Douglas and Tony Coakley. And with their names, they could get A, B and C, so they decided they were going to call their company ABC, which would be fantastic actually. Open the phone book, first name ABC, etc, etc. However, unbeknown to them, there was a company called Aerated Bread Company, which had been formed in 1862 and was still in existence, and they complained against ABC having that name. So the 4 guys then thought it through, and they came up with A and BC chewing gum. So 1949, here in England, A and BC chewing gum was formed with the 4 partners. In 1952, one of the Coakley brothers decides to go to America to source some more modern machinery to improve production, because in the early days the company was just so successful. They were producing chewing gum from chewing plastic, not chicle, which comes from South America, and they're also due to the restrictions on sugar, etc. after the Second World War, they were producing it to be sugarless. So Coakley goes over to America, and he's in New York, and he hears about some chewing gum manufacturing machinery down in Fort Worth, Texas. So without further ado, he hops on a plane down there, looks at the machinery. Without knowing too much about it, he actually secures it and has it shipped back to the UK. So the A&BC gum guys get all set up with this new machinery and producing gum, etc., and business is fine. In 1952, the then president of Tops approached ABC, and I'm guessing it must have been one of the 4 Shorin brothers. I'm not sure which one it was who came over, or maybe it was one of their technicians or something, but whoever it was came over, and they offered a licensing deal to the ABC chewing gum guys to produce Tops chewing gum in the UK. Because ABC Chewing Gum was a relatively new company at that point in time, only 3 years into its existence, the guys decided that they wouldn't accept the Topps offer, and they went on their own through the 50s. In 1953, with the equipment they'd gotten from America, they produced and issued their first set of gum cards, which was a set of film stars, a set of 48 cards, I think it was, and it was just fortunate that the machinery they'd bought could actually wrap and pack these cards with the gum. So by 1959 they'd produced various sets of cards, but also in 59 Topps came knocking on the door again. Another offer: produce our gum under license in the UK, but this time A&BC decided to accept the offer. So by 59, ABC were producing Bazooka gum under license in the UK, and sales were growing and growing. And of course, Topps were gaining some revenues from their licensing deal. In 59, it was decided, most likely with the influence of Topps, that ABC Chewing Gum would go into the sports card market. And from 1959 to 1974, they issued a set of football, call it soccer if you will, cards every year. Some years they issued more than one set, and probably also under the influence of Topps, they started to issue more than one set in a year in order to continue with production throughout the full football season. Each player who was represented in these sets were paid £10, regardless of their popularity, how good they were, whether they were star or just a regular player. They all got £10. There were two players that actually contested this, and the first one was Tommy Smith, who played for Liverpool. And once he understood that every player got the same, irrespective of who they were, then he accepted it. The other player was George Best, who at that point in time, in 1969, was really known as the fifth Beatle over in the UK. George wanted £1,000 instead of the £10 that everybody else get. And suffice it to say that he never appeared on another A&BC chewing gum card after 1969. So obviously they didn't look kindly upon George's demands. So in the mid-60s, Topps bought out Ruddy Brown's percentage, and they had a third of the company. Also, ABC established a network of 20 newsagents stores where they would sell their produce, and these were their test sites. And these were mainly based in the south of England. So they would send the products off to the test newsagent sites, and within a week they would know whether they would be going to full production or they would pull production. One of the sets which production was pulled on was the set of Rolling Stones. As a result of that, there was certainly a lack of cards, and that reflects in the prices of that set today. It's much more difficult to get hold of than, say, the Beatles sets and some of the other sets which A&BC chewing gum did. However, by the mid 70s, 1974 to be exact, there was a coming together between the two companies. it was most likely something to do with the licensing arrangement, and with their 1/3 ownership, Topps took ABC Chewing Gum to court, and in the court battle in '74, Topps won the battle, and A&BC chewing gum, was wound up, and 350 or so people were finished, and machineries, etc., card machineries and so on, were all left behind. So 1975, Topps then established themselves in their own right in the UK, and they produced card sets, football sets, from 75 through to 1981. And in 1981, basically the old traditional cards came to an end in the UK, and there were no more soccer cards produced until a few years later. So what I'd like to do now is just show you a few examples of where this interaction between Topps and A&BC manifested itself in the cards which were issued. So there we go. There was a typical Topps American football card, and hey presto, there we have the UK's soccer equivalent. And we can take a look at the backs, and there you can see that bazooka back in all its glory. I think this is 59 or 58, and then there we've got the UK football card, looking pretty much the same. The backs, again, slightly different. And of course there was no autograph on the, no facsimile autograph on the UK issue. But here's also a little demonstration of some of the early problems they had with their printing. That's the same card, in one with a red and one with an orange surround. So then we move in more into the mid-60s now. And then there we go. Bit of a mini card is the UK issue. And then the backs. So then we move into the 70s production, and effectively the first set which Topps produced in the UK. And then the backs. And again, we've got the American set of baseball with a facsimile autograph on the front, but with the UK set not having that. And then finally, we can look at the, have to bear with me on this one, on the last set that we've got. So this is and there's our football. That's a set actually there together, but there's our football set or soccer set from roughly the same period. The backs are very much similar. The basketball set has a blue back, and the UK set, football 1980, has a pink back. So that's kind of where we are. Whilst I was looking through and finding these exhibits to show, I came across a couple of other cards which we can look at, because as an also there's a reference to it in the subject we're talking about. So 1969 Topps baseball cards, and then we've got the backs. Let's see. So we've got an OPC back, and we've got the Topps back. So with that set in America, they issued, I believe, these decals. Now in the UK we call these would just be called transfers. There was one company in the UK at the time that were specialising in this stuff, and it was called Letraset. And just for reference, we can see that these are actually printed in the UK. Not only that, we issued in the UK under A&BC Chewing Gum a set of 72 footballers in exactly the same format as these, and they're pretty scarce. In fact, they're so scarce that for once the English equivalent are more expensive than the American, because normally with any soccer cards you look at a George Best card and he's probably worth, let's say, £10, whereas you'd look at a Mickey Mantle card and he'd be worth $500. So there's a huge difference, a huge chasm between the prices that are obtainable for baseball stars against soccer stars. Now, as a further point on this set, more recently, 2 reels were discovered with, I think, something like about 10,000 cards on the reels of 24 of the baseball players. So 24 of those baseball cards are pretty easy to find, and I guess that the price reflects that. And the other 24 are probably much more difficult, and I think both the Aron and the Mantle weren't on the fine, so those 2 cards still do hold their price, along with the other 24 that were not on those 2 reels. So that about winds it up for today. But what I'd like to leave you with is the very early Topps slogan, which they used to promote their products, and it was, "Don't talk chum, chew Topps gum." See you later, everybody.